I'm going to be reading from this book, The Forever Leader, The Life of Mary Baker Eddy, 1901 to 1910. It's the last book of a trilogy by Doris Greco, and it's full of interesting stories that will hold your attention and make you want to read on, and it is so lovingly told. I'm going to begin with chapter 30. It is entitled, Awake Thou That Sleepest. It will be indeed sweet at its first taste, when it heals you, but murmur not over truth, if you find its digestion bitter. Mary Baker Eddy. It was about 1902 when a Chicago physician, Dr. Edmund F. Burton, who had been using morphine for nearly a year to subdue the symptoms of consumption, was advised by two of his colleagues that his only chance for life was to move to Arizona. Dr. Burton wrote, "When I went to Arizona, I tried to stop the drug, but found that I had a well-founded opium habit, and that when I attempted to break it, which I did several times, the lung trouble became too serious to be borne. Thus the habit increased, as it always does. I had been a moderate drinker, but became less moderate in the use of alcohol, and soon began to use cocaine to alleviate both the effects of the morphine and for throat symptoms. To make a long and miserable story as short as possible, these three things, alcohol, morphine, and cocaine, became my food and drink. After some time in Arizona, I went to Southern California, to Pasadena. Here I sought the aid of a hypnotist to enable me to free myself from these habits, and found this method ineffectual. After this experience, the quantity of the three things that I was taking was enormously increased, until toward the end I was taking such quantities of morphine and cocaine as no one has ever recovered from, so far as I know. I became entirely demented and a menace to those about me. In the spring of 1905, when Dr. Burton had been unconscious for 48 hours, 5 of his fellow physicians held consultations and told Mrs. Burton he could not live 3 or 4 weeks, and arranged that he be sent to the state asylum the next day. On this dark day, April 19, 1905, a friend induced Mrs. Burton to allow a Christian Science practitioner to call, which he did, spending 3 hours with her husband. Dr. Burton says, "I have no memory of his coming or of his going, but he left me asleep, and I woke on the following morning free from all these habits, normal in brain and nerves, hungry, energetic, clear-headed, and happy. I knew the moment that I awoke that something had happened to me, and that whatever had done it, I was free from the awful things that had bound me. But I did not know what it was that had done it until I was told. From that moment I have never felt the slightest appetite for an opiate, cocaine, or alcohol in any form, have never felt any symptoms of lung trouble, and have been mentally sound and clear. Nor was there a moment of convalescence. My bowel condition was normal. My nerves were steady and quiet. I read quietly and with understanding, for the greater part of the morning, a book which took a great deal of mental concentration to understand, the like of which I had not been able to do for months. I drove my automobile half the afternoon, also a thing I had not been able to do for some time. April 20, 1905, was a great turning point in Dr. Burton's life. A year later, at 5:13 a.m. on Wednesday morning, April 18, 1906, a severe earthquake rocked California, causing San Francisco to suffer one of the worst disasters in United States history. Overturned stoves and gas lamps, plus broken electric wires and gas mains, caused explosions and raging fires which could not be checked because of broken water lines. For 3 days the fires raged, and on the second day, Dr. Burton was asked to assist in the surgical work at the San Francisco Emergency Hospital. This was April 20, exactly 1 year from the day of his miraculous recovery. He responded to the call for help, and for 3 weeks I stood on my feet and operated for about 16 hours a day. This was my last surgery, and coming after a year of study of Christian Science, decided me as to my future course. Dr. Burton's surgical work for 3 weeks following the earthquake and fire decided him as to his future career. He spent the ensuing year in the study of Christian Science and then began its practice. In January of 1915, Senator John D. Work of California used Dr. Burton's letter of testimony in the United States Senate in opposing a bill for a federal Department of Health. Dr. Burton's letter said, "I was most enthusiastic in the practice of surgery and was a Pharisee of the Pharisees as to its virtues. I gave it up only after being most thoroughly convinced that there was something better. I have learned to my entire satisfaction, knowing both sides of the question, that Christian Science is a science, and not only that, but also that it is an advanced step, and a long one, beyond medicine and surgery, and that time will prove this to the whole world." Following San Francisco's experience, earthquakes and disasters were on every tongue for weeks, and it was important that Christian Scientists reverse this trend. In mid-May, the leader sent these instructions to her board of directors: "Consider this, my proposition, that you require some of the best Christian Scientists in Boston and vicinity to pray once each day that no thought of earthquake, tornado, or destructive lightning enter thought to harm it, but that He who reigns in the heavens and watches over the earth saves from all harm. Again, let me say, pray not on hire, but on the demand of love to God and man. Many people, when they first hear Christian Science, these two words going together, these two words combined, wonder about it, and especially the word science. And I want to read in a compilation of Mary Baker Eddy's writings, prose works. She gives the definition of metaphysics, and in this definition you see how she uses science. According to Webster, metaphysics is defined thus: the science of the conceptions and relations which are necessary to thought and knowledge. Science of the mind. Worcester defines it as the philosophy of mind as distinguished from that of matter. A science of which the object is to explain the principles and causes of all things existing. Brandy calls metaphysics the science which regards the ultimate grounds of being as distinguished from its phenomenal modifications. A speculative science which soars beyond the bounds of experience is a further definition.